Hey there, Jordan Sheridan. I'm live in Washington Square Park here in New York City. There's a little gathering here for Julian Assange. Today is Julian Assange's 48th birthday. Obviously not spending his birthday out with the public. Let me wait a few minutes for the audience to build up here. As you can see, you have a couple people. The event just started, so there might be some more gathering up. But you got first Assange, then us. You have Defend Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning, Defend Press Freedom, Free Julian Assange, as well as Free Chelsea Manning. Hold on one second. Let me know if you guys could hear me, if you could see everything. I'm looking at the live chat now, so I am not the best tech person, but I think everything is working. So let me know in the live chat if you could hear me, if you could see me. So got a couple people here, about, I don't know, 7 or 8 so far. Not the biggest turnout, but actually it kind of says a lot, because I think the majority of the world is kind of asleep to what's going on with Julian Assange. So this is kind of the perfect symbol. You have, old and young in New York City. And I've noticed that the folks here have gone up to people asking if they even know who Julian Assange is, and some people have said no. So let me come up to these fine folks. Talk to me about why you're out on this nice, hot, humid day for Julian Assange. I guarantee most of the world does not know it's his birthday or the conditions he's been living under in a maximum security prison in the UK.
We're here to celebrate Julian and hopefully to make sure that he doesn't get extradited. He is just a journalist. He is not a criminal. And we wish him the best.
What do you think of the media here, the corporate media? Exactly, what media? You know, aside from a couple tweets saying this is dangerous, you don't see the New York Times standing for Julian Assange. You don't see Washington Post, all outlets that have printed things with WikiLeaks in the past.
Right. But the New York Times does know that what they are trying to extradite Julian Assange under means that they can arrest any journalist in the United States for any reason. They should be here with us, but they are not. So.
And, as far as what he's been treated as, it looks like he's supposed to have a hearing beginning of next year, but most people think it's kind of for show, and they're basically rubber stamping him to be extradited here, which will be a slow death sentence.
Yes. I suspect if he gets extradited the way they'd like him to, they will put him away in jail forever, and you will never see him again. We are out here to try and make sure that that doesn't happen. And if enough people, more people in your audience come out here and join us, maybe we can get more of the word out.
Seeing a lot of comments already. Free Assange, jail the rich. What about you, sir?
Hi. Yeah, well, this is the case of Julian Assange is an immense threat to press freedom and freedom of speech around the world. He's being prosecuted for telling the truth about American war crimes. He's going to be, as the gentleman said, if he's extradited to the United States, he'll disappear into the American gulag forever. And I think we should all understand that. It's an extraordinary threat because it's a threat against someone who's done nothing but publish the truth. It's a threat because it's the United States demanding extraterritorial jurisdiction over a reporter who's never even been to the United States, doesn't work in the United States, doesn't publish in the United States. And the U.S. is demanding that third countries arrest and extradite to the United States someone who's published the truth somewhere else. So it's really a threat. I think that every reporter right now must be a little bit already fearful about publishing the kinds of things that he has once they've seen him dragged out of the embassy and into jail. And if he disappears into the American prison system forever, what will reporters around the world, every one of whom the United States is claiming authority over, think and do, and how much will they hesitate to publish true facts that everyone should know? Right. And I'll just mention that I have a couple of articles on Assange if you want to read them. I'm Jim Kavanagh. I have an article called Avoiding Assange and an article called Swedish Sex Pistol Aimed at Assange on Counterpunch and on my website, thepolemicist.net.
What's really troubling to me is this propaganda that's been put out. President Obama's Department of Justice, they tried to prosecute him, but they were smart enough to realize that it would be an unprecedented attack because really what he did is no different than what the Washington Post, the New York Times did with the Pentagon Papers. However, if you read the indictment from this president's DOJ, it reads almost like criminalizing normal practice. Oh, he encouraged a source to steal documents. He encouraged a source, dig, dig, dig. Or he, quote, tried to get a password, not himself hack government documents, but help Chelsea Manning basically cover her tracks, which journalists do all the time for sources. What are your thoughts on basically this narrative that's been painted that he was like a co-hacker?
Well, yeah, it's very important to realize that Julian Assange didn't hack into anything, that nobody, in fact, hacked into anything in this case. Chelsea Manning didn't need to hack into it. She had access via her own password, and she had already downloaded the documents and already tried to contact the Washington Post and the New York Times with them before, when she didn't actually, they sent a voicemail, and then she went to Julian Assange. So the only thing concretely in that respect that Assange is even accused of is suggesting that there might be ways for her to decrypt another person's password, not in order to get the material, but in order to cover her own tracks. That is the issue. And the other things that are in this indictment are extremely dangerous because there are things like, using Dropboxes, encouraging people to tell the truth or to get some information, things that journalists do all the time. So this indictment under the Espionage Act, and that is something that Obama started to use against journalists in a very dangerous way. And now the Trump administration is again accelerating that in a much more dangerous way with this thing. And I think we should all be concerned about this. It is amazing to me that there aren't more people concerned about this. And that the press, as you say, in the United States and in the world, is not up in arms about this. I mean, if this were a journalist for the New York Times or the Washington Post, Jamal Khashoggi, and, Julian Assange isn't subject to that yet, but he's going to disappear into the prison system, and he's being punished for telling the truth.
And remember, folks, smash that like button. YouTube is definitely going to suppress this. They do not want anything about Julian Assange out in the public sphere. So if you're watching on your phone, temporarily X out of that live stream, smash the like button. It's a thumbs up, and then get back into it. What about you, ma'am? I see that around this park, a lot of people are kind of living their life, just like a lot of people are living their life everywhere. They think that, the U.S. government, the CIA, the Homeland Security is out to protect them, yet they're basically trying to give a man a death sentence simply for exposing, war crimes. What are your thoughts on kind of the cognitive dissonance of the general population?
Just from standing here and talking to a few passerbys, people who pass by, I can see how unaware people are. And someone even said, "Who's Julian Assange?" So it's a lot worse than I even thought. People really don't know who he is and what he's done and what he sacrificed in his life to let people know. There used to be a rogue nation or two, but now just about the whole world is one big rogue nation. These countries can do whatever they want, can violate our privacy, they can murder journalists at will, and nobody's responsible, nobody's held accountable. And when truth tellers like Julian Assange, Chelsea Manning, Snowden reveal these things, they get persecuted. And it's not...
Now, not to interrupt you, but Glenn Greenwald is now being persecuted in Brazil for revealing basically private documents that show the former president of Brazil's, Lula's prosecution was basically just totally contrived. The current Brazilian government is now trying to essentially punish him for doing journalism.
Yes, every journalist is going to take their turn at being silenced. And, one of the reasons we're here is we call on journalists throughout this country, in particular in the United States. There's a blackout, a silence. Maybe people are afraid. Journalists need to come out and speak in support of Julian. It's very important. And that's not really happening too much. and they're going to be next. We're also here to make people understand about the lies and the smears that various governments and sinister groups have tried to perpetrate against Julian, call him a rapist, which he's not. Those were all lies. Those were trumped up charges.
Never formally been charged with rape.
No, and even the women, and people here in this country should know that even the women said that they were railroaded, that the police forced them to make statements that weren't true. And those women also bragged that they were with Julian intimately. So he is being, in the same way that Scott Ritter was smeared when he tried to unmask that there were no weapons of mass destruction back in the Bush days, it's the same thing with Julian Assange. They're smearing his character, calling him arrogant. And even on the left, they're saying whether you like Julian Assange or not, or what you think about him or not. This tone, this characterization of him as some bad person, so that it's actually seeped into the American consciousness that he is a bad person, and he's not a bad person. He's a good person who doesn't want us to live lives of secrecy or have our privacy invaded.
There's also this McCarthyism, trying to paint him as a part of the Russian government or an arm of the Russian government, where there was never any evidence provided that he got any information from Russia. And he himself has very vehemently said, my source wasn't the Russian government, but because we live in a country that basically, since after World War II, maybe it started, Russia, boogeyman, that is a big reason why people have turned to people who previously cheered when WikiLeaks released things that harmed Republican presidents, now are against WikiLeaks because they think it hurt Hillary Clinton.
Yes, communism is another way to try to smear people, just like they tried to smear Paul Robeson. Whether people are a member of the Communist Party or not, and whether they think it's a good thing or not, the U.S. government thinks that's a way to smear people by making them think that they are friends of Russia. But that's just one of the many lies and smear campaigns that they've tried to level against Julian Assange to get the American public, because very often the court of public opinion is what's going to determine somebody's guilt or innocence. That's what they're trying to do, to establish that he's some evil person. He didn't hack anything. He didn't, what's the word I'm looking for? He didn't conspire with Chelsea Manning to get any passwords or code words. He just downloaded what whistleblowers gave him. He was a journalist who was downloading information, and in particular, I think the U.S. government is really angry about that video that people could download from WikiLeaks and see that the United States murdered journalism and that the military men laughed about it.
Collateral damage video, yeah.
Yeah, murdered children and innocent people, not military people, and laughed about it. And when this was shown to the world, I think Julian may have thought that the world was going to react in a very angry way, but a lot of the world didn't react at all. And that says something about why people aren't here or why journalists aren't speaking out, because I think people are so numb and so immune to all the nasty, dirty little things that the U.S. government has done that maybe people have lost hope. I don't know. But people need to come out. This is really important, and I hope you'll join us at the next upcoming support rallies for Julian.
We should also add that Chelsea Manning is still in solitary confinement. This is now the second time she's been put in jail. Obviously, she was in jail for many years, and they're doing this as a way to get to Julian Assange. And
these people are only to be respected and honored, as they are far more trustworthy than some of the most sinister governments and corporate media and the people who run the world behind the scenes in the shadows. These people are honorable and should be supported.
Thank you, ma'am. So we have, let me know if you could see, if you could hear. We have a fair trial, question mark. Obviously, we don't expect Julian Assange to get a fair trial. Ma'am, can I speak with you? Ma'am, how you doing? So did you make that sign?
I did.
Wow, beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Assange with that fierce white hair. Obviously, it's his birthday today. Kind of talk to me. I was talking to the other folks over here. There's just a really palpable cognitive dissonance in this park and in this country, where you have somebody who, it's basically now a crime to just share truthful information. And it's also been kind of propagandized. Oh, national security, where what he released was basically crimes that the U.S. military were perpetrating. But as of now, it looks like they're just trying to rubber stamp. He'll wait till his hearing in February and then likely be extradited here.
Yes. No, I agree with that. And that's why we're here. We're here to celebrate, first of all, the 48th anniversary of his birth. It feels a little bit disingenuous to say something as trite as happy birthday, knowing the persecution he has been under for the last 8 years. He's joined the pantheon of other people incarcerated who have had to be tested by the most brutal methods to test their inner strength. And, that is a very hard road that he has facing him. We're here in total solidarity with his mission, and we have some news to celebrate, however, this week. We just learned today that the Swedish government is not going to go forward with a request for investigation in Britain. Most people would judge by that there simply isn't the evidence.
That's on the alleged rape.
Yeah, that's on the Swedish charges of sexual molestation, which is rape is a little different there. So that's not going to go forward for the moment, and probably it has every evidence that it's going to stand. Also, 37 British MPs have written a letter to the European Parliament in support of Assange, and demanding that Britain does not extradite him. That's a very good, hopeful sign. There's a free speech organization called Article 19. They've also, solicited the British government to not extradite. Another good sign. Another good sign is the report by Niels Meltzer, who's the UN Special Rapporteur for torture, and his report confirms what we've all known, but it makes the report official, and that's a very good sign for Assange and for his legal case. So we're celebrating those small milestones in this whole long and convoluted case that the great human rights lawyer Gareth Pierce said it is more troubling and more puzzling and more troubling the more this case is scrutinized.
Remember, folks, if you're watching, we got 145 people watching. We need all of you to press that like button. YouTube is definitely suppressing this topic because they don't want the truth out on Assange or anyone of courage. So, oh, good, you're watching. So press that like button, and remember, it's a super chat. Keep it coming. So I want to ask you about Chelsea Manning, too, because she's been also ignored.
She's also in the pantheon of people who have suffered greatly and innocently been thrown into prison, and we are absolutely in support of her.
Because it seems to me they're putting her in solitary confinement now for the second time for refusing to talk to a grand jury, even though nothing she could even tell this grand jury is anything new. It's just basically, I think, trying to psychologically have her break to maybe even make untruthful statements against Julian Assange.
It could be. It could be in hopes of that kind of outcome. But definitely your first comment to break her, it's clearly that. It serves no purpose for her to be in prison right now. And that actually we have proof of that they're breaking, that was a design with Assange. I think his first name was Robert Diaz, and he was the CIA lawyer. And he gave a speech on a conservative radio program, and I don't remember the name of it, but he was asked by the interviewer why the U.S. just doesn't come out and say whether or not there's a grand jury, investigation. And his answer was, "We feel it will disturb Assange's sleep that he doesn't know." And the interviewer, was rather stunned and just said, interesting, one word. And this is a legal counsel flagrantly admitting this. And then later on in the program, as if he didn't catch himself that he made a mistake and he had a slip of the tongue, he repeated it again. The purpose was to disturb Julian Assange's sleeping habits.
It's interesting to me, kind of disgusting at the same time. Here you have 4th of July. Trump is putting on this absurd pony show. He's bringing in a military parade with tanks. Meanwhile, you have children and people seeking asylum in detention centers. Some call them concentration camps. And basically one of the preeminent journalists who's been awarded, more awards than anyone at NBC, is sitting in a cell, a maximum security cell. He's also been in the hospital's health wing, because if you're locked up for 7 years, both mental health issues, physical health issues, and that's more of the propaganda. They smeared him as, he's a bad house guest. He rode his skateboard and crapped on the wall and these things. I'd probably do much worse if I was in that box for 7 years.
I think a lot of people would. And Assange, remarkably, through all of this 8-year ordeal, has really never displayed bitterness. I thought it was really striking, even when he was arrested, and all the multiple photos of him being transported to the court. All of those photos, not one showed anger or bitterness. It was a completely open expression, giving the peace sign, giving the power salute. It's really amazing, and in all the multiple ways he's been smeared and stabbed in the back, I just don't see any example where Assange has reciprocated in kind and issued ad hominem attacks on any journalist who has written, scathingly damaging pieces on him. He is a model of decency and a morality, really, throughout all this.
One thing that I'm concerned about as a journalist, because I do investigative work, I've been to Flint many times on the war crisis. What's next? If you upset the apple cart towards fossil fuel companies, you're going to be sent to The Hague. A lot of these, I put reporters in kind of fluffy quotes, but these New York Times people, Washington Post people, they don't really report anything. They really just repeat what unnamed CIA people tell them. And, they start everything with whether you like Assange or not. Well, if you're a journalist, shouldn't you like exposing war crimes? You could argue with some of his methods, but hey, I've tried to get sources to get information, legally or not legally. So this is what you have to do.
And, that's a good point that you reminded me of. Just last week, the New York Times, something leaked where the editorial board passes on the themes that they're going to address in their issues to the government for a prior okay. And I'm sure that's very embarrassing to them, but we've known these things, but it's nice that there's a kind of proof out there.
And the interesting thing is, the New York Times did a good investigative piece a couple months ago where they got some of Trump's taxes. Whoever got those taxes gave it to them illegally. You can't just pass people's taxes. I don't hear anyone calling for the New York Times head. The Washington Post has done similar stories like that. So it seems more of a case of the elitist media is protected, but media that shows, frankly, that the military-industrial complex is not like the shining city on top of a hill, but is basically, shooting indiscriminately at Iraqis, journalists, and then laughing about it. that's deemed a national security problem.
Right. Absolutely. But I think the most important thing for all your viewers and everyone, and what we're trying to do today, is really trying to get people to know the facts of this case. As Gareth Pierce said, it's puzzling and troubling because there's been so many convolutions. There are multi-layered violations of state and international laws to the point where there is no rule of law in this case. They're making it up as they go. It's very important that the facts get out there. So we're, in the process of writing up some things, and we really encourage everybody to try to stay in the loop and use the internet for purposes of getting the real news and the real facts. And when you navigate articles on WikiLeaks, you soon will learn who are the trustworthy, spokespeople and who are not. So I would encourage everybody to stick with it, learn the facts, and support Julian Assange's case because it's very serious at this point.
My audience is saying thank you guys for showing up and doing this. We got 160 watching right now. What's your name?
Patricia.
Thanks, Patricia. Can I get over here? We got Free Julian with his picture, Jail the War Criminals. Let's speak about some of those war criminals, because you got John Bolton right now trying to get us to war with Iran. You have Mike Pompeo, Elliot Abrams. So all these people are glorified. They're invited on in the media. On NBC, Bill Kristol basically sleeps in their green room after helping us to go to the Iraq War. So it seems like in American society, if you are a warmonger, if you're openly saying it's for the oil, John Bolton said he wanted Venezuela for the oil, you are elevated. But if you're Julian Assange, you're facing solitary confinement for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah, you're swimming in money, promoted. There's people like John Brennan who are side by side constantly on MSNBC.
James Clapper on CNN.
Holy, really, it's really upsetting to be an American right now when so much is upside down and most people are propagandized so much that they're not even. I'm so glad you're interviewing us because this has been a very worrisome thing and it shouldn't have even gotten this far. 7 years being persecuted, the UN Special Rapporteur, Nils Melzer, being passionate about him after seeing that perhaps he was also influenced by so much of the propaganda.
He called it torture.
He did. He did ridicule, you name it. It was in so many ways by ganging up